Today we're back reading some more Malicious Compliance and I'm so excited. You guys seem to really enjoy the first episode and I had such a good time that we're already back reading some more today. I've really been enjoying the long form episodes, just sitting back and reading stories every day. And yeah guys, thank you for being here once again. I really appreciate it. And let's get straight into it. Enjoy guys. Don't care about people calling me on your old number. All sorted. This was about 10 years ago. Also, English is my second language and I'm writing this on my phone. I'll have a TLDR at the end. I just moved to Australia and I'd gotten a new phone. But as it turns out, my number was someone else's old number. Every other week I'd get calls by a tradie who wanted to know why I wasn't on site, mate, or what I wanted done with a building project. Every time I explained at length that they got the wrong number, and quite often folks on the other end were absolutely rude, or they thought I was taking the piss and they insist I answered their questions or show up on site. I was over it, so I googled my own number and I did some digging and I eventually found out the guy who had my number before and then his new number, so I called him. I politely explained the dilemma, pointed out there were two websites still having his old and my new number, and if he could please change this and let his contacts know about his new number and to delete the old one as it was getting quite tedious for me. By that time I used my number for work, visa applications and landlords and friends, and changing it would have been a huge pain, and I explained all of this. Well, of course, he was just as pleasant as most of his contacts and told me something along the lines of, I don't give a damn, mate, that's not my freaking problem. Get F to sort your own stuff out, mate. Well, the universe provides, and so I got a great opportunity to do just that. Only a few weeks later, I received a call in the early hours of one morning by another disgruntled guy, telling me he was early and demanded to know where I wanted the sand put down and how to get in. I asked what sand, and I was told he had a full truckload of sand as ordered and no one on site and it was all fenced off. So briefly did I think about launching into explanation, but I was tired and over it. And then I realized the opportunity provided. I snapped back at him with no uncertainty. Mate, it's all good. Dump it all right in the driveway, front of the fence. We'll sort it out when we get there. The guy said, are you sure, mate? It's a lot of sand. Me, absolutely sure, mate. Thanks a lot. Him, all right then, boss. And then hangs up. Well, I go back to bed snoozing for another hour with a big smile on my face until my phone rings again and I see it's old mate with his new number, who I had saved when I called him a few weeks ago. I pick up rather chipper and he doesn't waste any time launching into a series of swear words and how he has no access to the site and that he has to move a literal ton of sand by hand and whether or not I told the sand guy to dump it all there. I replied, you told me to sort this out myself. This is me sorting this out. You can remove the numbers and let your contacts know or not. Totally up to you, mate. He was fuming, called me a few more choice words, promising to find me and a lot more before we ended the conversation. However, the numbers disappeared from the internet really quick after that and I never got another call. I still have my number and every time I see a truck with sand I chuckle to myself, thinking of this guy moving a ton of sand by hand and losing a fair few hours of labor because he was a douchebag and couldn't be bothered sending a few messages. Oh my god, that's so funny. They changed it so fast and it is deserved as well because you don't treat somebody like this. They called up to say that they need to change their number or like delete it from the websites and stuff. So they get stuck into them and swearing at them and calling them names and stuff. Yeah, that's not very nice. Wow, that was so good. Manager tries to crack down on the dress code. I respond by wearing yoga pants to work. So I, 34 male, used to work at a popular convenience store, really popular with a cult-like following years ago. I've always been a bit of a clown, but very good at following rules while doing so. After working there for a few years and seeing managers come and go, we got in a new woman who was just miserable and really wanted to flex her authority. Shortly after she started, she posted the uniform portion of the handbook in the break room and started complaining about people's attire, but obviously took the biggest issue with girls wearing yoga pants. So me being the petty rule follower I am, combed through the policy and noticed some things in the wording. The rule stated that yoga pants are allowed as long as the ankles are flared and there was no gender designation for these articles. Cue the malicious compliance. I and a friend went to Walmart after working and bought me a couple of pairs of flared yoga pants. Now, mind you, I'm not a huge guy, but I am chubby and I have a big beard. I began wearing them almost every day that I worked, and especially if she was working. This infuriated her. I would regularly hear her protest and even saw her go to the AGM and GM. Their response was always, I can't say anything, he's in dress code. This continued for months before she requested a transfer. But what made it even more fun was trolling weird pervert customers. They would stand at the deli area and gawk at the the young ladies working, especially if they're bent over the hot food table. When I would notice this, I'd sidle over beside them and give the boys two butts to look at before whipping my head around and making eye contact with them. The level of disgust on their faces filled my heart with joy. Wow, that one was so funny as well. I love this subreddit. I know I said it in the last episode, but I'm sad I haven't been making videos on this for ages. Not 5 minutes early, but 10 minutes late, and it cost them a fortune. The 5-minute early post reminded me of a story that happened to a friend of mine. Let's call him Bobby. Bobby was a CNC machinist, a good one, and the only one. The company he worked for made an intricate product, and his CNC part was crucial. The rest of the product bolted onto it, and the finished product sold for tens of thousands of dollars. It took 3 hours to make this piece. Bobby would make about 3 a day. He'd make one in the morning, take his coffee break, and then make another, and then take his lunch break. That ate up about 6.75 hours. He'd stay late to make the third part and make 2 hours overtime. His new foreman turned out to be more than a bit of a jerk. He'd try to get Bobby to do other tasks, and Bobby said no, as he needed to monitor the CNC machine during all stages of the cycle. Foreman complained to the plant manager, who told him to back off and leave Bobby alone. One day there was a bad snowstorm and Bobby was 10 minutes late. The foreman was there to meet him at the time clock with a crap-eating grin on his face, holding a demerit slip. Bobby clocked in a minute late the previous week, and the union rule said that if you were late twice within 14 days, you got 20 demerit points. Bobby and the foreman got into a bit of an animated conversation, and the union steward came over and said that Bobby had no choice but to take the demerit hit. So Bobby went to work. His shift was 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m, but he usually stayed until 6:30 to finish the last part. Not today. At 4:30, he shut the machine down and headed for the door. The next morning, foreman comes over and says that the assembly team is short a part. Yeah, I know, I'm working on it right now. It'll be done in 2 hours, but they need 3 a day. Why didn't you make 3 of them yesterday? Because my shift is over at 4:30 and I went home. What? You stayed every night until the third part is finished? Bobby pulled the demerit slip out of his shirt pocket, looked the foreman in the eye and said, not anymore. Bobby had done the math. Every week, instead of getting 15 parts, they were getting 10 or 11. The foreman tried to sweep it under the rug, but within a few days, chaos ensued. The assemblers had no core part, and their team went to the plant manager to let him know that production was falling. The assemblers liked it. They got to hang around yakking while they waited for the next CNC part to arrive. Eventually, there was a meeting with the plant manager, the foreman, the union steward, and Bobby. The foreman tried to throw Bobby under the bus, saying that he refused overtime. Union steward pointed out that, as per the contract, mandatory overtime was only in cases of emergencies, and this wasn't an emergency. Bobby had every right to decline the overtime. The foreman lost his temper, started yelling at Bobby and the union steward, and was asked to leave the meeting. The plant manager knew that he was screwed and looked at Bobby and asked, "What's it gonna take to get you to work the overtime?" Bobby smiled and replied, "As long as the foreman is my supervisor, I won't be working a minute of overtime." And that was the last anyone saw the foreman. By sticking to the contract, Bobby cost the company a handful of parts worth many thousands of dollars and put the company into a position where their lowered production would cost them even more in perpetuity. Bobby worked a couple of Saturdays to catch up and made double time for those shifts. They hired a new foreman who was explicitly instructed, do not under any circumstances mess with Bobby. Like, hey, listen everybody, Bobby is super important to us, so don't mess with him. If he's 5 minutes late, don't worry about it. Yeah, like the top comment says, see that guy over there? That's Bobby. Bobby makes a key component of a machine that sells for tens of thousands of dollars. If you come to us with a complaint about Bobby working overtime, or Bobby comes to us telling us that you gave him crap because traffic was slow and he was 5 minutes late someday, you will be asked to leave. I altered my uniform to comply with the dress code in my employee handbook. Back when I, now 37 female, was younger with a lot of attitude and a loud mouth, I worked for a nice Italian restaurant in my hometown. I didn't have a single issue with management until 7 months into my employment when a male manager joined the team. He was a bit of a misogynist. He would make backhanded comments about women, and he only had issues with the female staff. He wrote me up for some ridiculous reasons, one being opening the door too hard when it was a heavy steel door that you had to put some muscle into to open. He fired another lady who was pregnant for asking to be put in a section closest to the kitchen. She filed a lawsuit and she won too. One day I walked into work, he pulled me into the office immediately and presented me with a write-up slip. It was because I was not wearing a belt. The dress code stated if pants have belt loops, a belt must be worn. Okay, my uniform that day didn't comply with the dress code. The issue was that I hadn't worn a belt in 7 months while he and other managers never mentioned it. In my opinion, the appropriate thing to say would have been, hey, I see you haven't been wearing a belt and we haven't really been enforcing it. The dress code says that you must wear a belt if you have belt loops. I'll give give you so-and-so amount of days to purchase one before I start enforcing. But no, I just got a straight write-up. So I went home and I cut off all the belt loops of my work pants. The next day, immediately upon walking in, he asked me where my belt was. I pointed to my pants and said, "Where are my belt loops?" The employee handbook stated if there are belt loops, but I no longer had belt loops. Let's just say it didn't make him like me anymore, but I felt like a hero standing up to him in such a petty manner. And you're not doing anything wrong. You don't have belt loops anymore. Like, that's completely fair enough. No one ever makes it hot enough. Okay, then you asked for it. I used to be a chef in a Mexican restaurant in a small town in Australia nearly 40 years ago. We were modestly popular and I loved working there. One night a young man came in to dine with a young lady. It was obviously a first date. They ordered nachos to share with a side of jalapenos for their entree, and he ordered a steak at Veracruz, very hot for his main, and the young lady ordered a chicken burrito, mild for hers. I, as I usually did, would walk around the tables and ask if people were enjoying the food. After the nachos, I checked in on him, and the young man informed me that the chili that accompanied the nachos were not hot at all, and that he loved hot food. I was informed that he'd traveled extensively and had eaten some of the hottest food in the world, and that no one had ever made a dish too hot for him. He reiterated that he wanted his steak made extra hot. To be honest, I found him to be pompous and rather obnoxious in the way he was speaking down to me, and I found myself taking a disliking to him. I will add at this point that the young lady was looking a little bit uncomfortable, and I got the impression that her date was not going as she'd expected. I headed to the kitchen. I made her a lovely chicken burrito while putting together his steak. He wanted it hot. He was gonna get it. Our steak was usually a steak cooked and topped with our house tomato sauce, with some capsicums or bell peppers for you Americans, and onions with a touch of chili. On this occasion, I set to work. Keep in mind, this was Australia back in the 80s, and we did not get a lot of different chilies back then, and a jalapeno was considered hot by most Aussie palates. Hey, we were an uneducated bunch. I had a few bird's eye chilies in the kitchen that were mainly there for staff and the resident Mexican guitarist meals, so I started with those. I finally diced about 10 of those with their seeds. I then started sweating off my onions and capsicums. I then threw the chilies in and added about a tablespoon of chili powder and about a tablespoon of cayenne. I soon felt the fumes hit my nose and the back of my throat, and my eyes started watering. I ran to the door of the kitchen to get a breath of breathable air, as the air in my tiny kitchen was rapidly becoming unbreathable. I ran back to my pan and put a ladle of the house tomato sauce in. I then let that simmer for a few minutes. I then added some chopped up jalapenos from a jar in my fridge, and I thought, why not? And I went in with a bit more chili powder. I then put the flash fried steak in to finish off in the sauce. I served it all up on a plate with some rice, served up the chicken burrito, and hit the bell for the waitress to serve it to the table. The waitress came back and told me that as she placed it in front of him, he said, "This had better be hot." She assured him that the chef had done as he requested. I went to the door of the kitchen, joined by my waitress, to watch the show unfold, and unfold it did. I watched with glee as he sliced the steak, took a piece on his fork, and with a smug look on his face, he put it in his mouth. He took a chew and then realized his mistake. I saw it. That moment when his face changed, but he was trying so hard not to show it. He couldn't. He was on a date and he'd bragged so hard, and now he had to go through with it. He ate the steak. I could see every ounce of pain in his face. He struggled hard. His date watched him with a slight smile on her lips, and I got the impression that she was thoroughly enjoying his pain. He went through several jugs of water. He sweated. He barely spoke, and he looked damn uncomfortable. At the end of the meal, I came out of the kitchen and I asked him if he had enjoyed his meal. His words: "Could have been hotter." He never came back. His date, she became a regular and told us that he was an insufferable fool and she never saw him again. I have no regrets, besides I wish Carolina Reapers had been around then. Wow, that's so funny. Like, yeah, come on, make it hot. And they're sweating and they're in pain. And also they can what? Look cool in front of their date? Like, at that point, would it have even tasted any good? No, I must show everybody that I can eat any spicy food. These are so fun to read. My boss told me I couldn't take a smoke break if I wasn't smoking. I first started working at 17 as a housekeeper cleaning condos in downtown Toronto. It wasn't a bad gig. The building was under construction, finishing units and such, so there was quite a bit of dust, but other than that, it was fairly easy to work, and at the time I was getting above minimum wage. I was the only cleaner in the building, but I was good friends with the security guards, and I would hang out with them on most of my breaks. They were all smokers, and I noticed they were taking small breaks, so if I happened to be near them when they were taking a smoke break, I'd hang out with them. My boss was a sweet guy, but he did casually mention that the smoke breaks were for smokers only, and I couldn't just hang out with them. The next break I had to sit down with my security guards, and they joked that I should have just had a cigarette in my hand, but not actually smoke it. That's when I decided to be a little bit creative with my malicious compliance. The next day I came into work work with a small pack of sparklers. I kept them in my pocket, and when I saw the security guards taking a smoke break, I went out with them and I pulled out a sparkler and lit it up and just kind of stood there with them as the sparkler went off. We all had a good chuckle about it. The boss saw me and came outside probably to talk to me about not taking a smoke break if I wasn't a smoker, but he saw the sparkler in my hand. The security guards pointed out that technically I was smoking as the sparkler was producing little bits of smoke. The boss laughed it off and apologized and said that as long as I get my work done, I can take smoke breaks with the others with or without the sparklers. Oh, that's so good. That one had a happy ending. It's so nice that they apologized and realized it was stupid. The top comment: I always thought that if smokers get a 15-minute smoke break, then the rest of us should get a 15-minute break to cry in our cars. I took a co-worker's parking spot after they complained I was arriving late. My commute to work got progressively longer and unpredictable over the past year due to 4 bridge closures occurring within months or weeks of each other. No date has been given for their reopening, so for the time being, short of heading off for work an hour or two ahead of time, you risk arriving a minute to 5 minutes late once or twice a week. Everyone has been impacted by the traffic in one way or another, which I mentioned because there was no way someone could feign ignorance. One co-worker though didn't care about legitimate reasons for me being slightly late for work every now and then, and complained so adamantly behind my back about it that my immediate supervisor reluctantly wrote me up. I knew it had to be that one co-worker because they would get noticeably irritated whenever traffic conditions were brought up. They would leave the room or loudly interrupt with unimportant questions or comments or roll their eyes. They're also known for complaining about every little thing, at one point having played a big role in not having a seasonal employee rehired the following year. Despite my co-worker, I love my job, so I started leaving for work an hour and a half earlier than before. My arrival time is now anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes before my shift starts, and that's when I noticed the annoying co-worker always arrives about 10 minutes early and always has a very convenient street parking space available. I used to park on a different side of our building before traffic got bad and had never noticed that they'd unofficially claimed that public parking spot as theirs. Most of the time I'm at work early enough to get my pick of any spot in our always crowded employee parking lot, but no parking spot besides theirs makes up for my having to wake up at 5:30 in the morning. That co-worker can't complain about me being late now. They know better than anyone I'm at work way before I have to. I've mentioned my arrival time to other co-workers with them in earshot, so they know I'm parking there out of spite. I've also gone as far as parking right in the middle of a space large enough to accommodate their car and mine. I have no idea if they've complained to our supervisor about it or not, but I really want them to have been stupid enough to complain about me taking their public parking spot away. Yeah, they need to mind their own business. How frustrating. Yeah, like this comment says, Jesus Christ, I'm glad I work with adults. 100%. And I feel like that's a good place to read something wholesome. I'll make sure to make another Malicious Compliance episode very soon. But for now, let's read something a lot less infuriating. 1939, Kansas wheat. Oh, yeah, I've seen this one before. When they realized that women were using their sacks to make clothes for their children, the mill started using flowered fabric for their sacks so the kids would have pretty clothes and made sure the label would wash out. Yeah, how bloody awesome is that? And especially the part where they make sure the label is gonna wash out. That's so sweet. Like, if people are making clothes out of our wheat sacks, we at least need to make them beautiful. Breaks my heart that pirates spend their whole lives following a map when the real treasure is the friendships they build along the way. Hey, I don't know who you are, but your tweet is now framed and hung up in my apartment. Yeah, hey, I don't know who you are, but your tweet is now framed and hung up in my house. Oh, that's so cute. Please keep going until you both have houses full of tweets. Like every inch of wall space is a framed tweet. Like the employee of the month photos at the Krusty Krab. I'm so proud of Justin. His friend without the jacket isn't allowed to wear a costume because of his religion, so Justin and the rest of the boys brainstormed to come up with an idea that would work for him without having to exclude anyone. Ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at the President of the United States and his Secret Service man. Hashtag proud mama. Yeah, how beautiful is that? What an awesome group of friends. No one left behind. Yeah, that's so beautiful. And once again, thank you for watching, everybody. I hope you had a wonderful time. I also had a wonderful time. This subreddit Reddit is so fun, and I'm already so excited to make another episode on here. And yeah, guys, if you enjoyed, make sure you like and subscribe, all that fun stuff. And the comment of the day today goes to the Mini Muffler. I did my first day of work a few days ago, and I was allowed to listen to music and videos while I cleaned. I had you keeping me company for 6 hours. Thank you for all your content, Vincey. Oh, that's so awesome. First of all, thank you so much for the support. That means so much to me. Having me in the background for 6 hours, that's incredible. The support from you guys is so unbelievable. I love the idea that you guys are just going about your day, or in this case, working and cleaning, and I'm just in the background reading ridiculous stuff. That's so cool. And yeah, guys, thank you again for all your support. Make sure you have a beautiful, amazing rest of your day. And you know what I'm about to say because I say it every single day. Bye!